good day. Today I'll be the driver of this session, and I have Ulrich with me navigating the session.
I am Ulrich, and I'll be the navigator.
So, we're discussing chapter 5 of HTMX. Here we have basically application where you validate an email address. So by putting in this email address, it's basically validating the format of that address. Basically what happens is when I input an email address, right, what happens is a post request is made, and after that the server basically validates the email and passes this message that the email is valid. But if I put the wrong format for an email, the email is not validated, so saying that I should enter a valid email address. So that's basically how it works. Let's jump into the code. So I have my server.js firstly over here, and imported express, initializing the application, and the port is on 3000. Then let's jump into this function here, or method. Basically here, this is where the post request is being handled, and a post request is being made to this endpoint email. Basically that post request is made when we enter the email in the front end. So this handles the post request, and over here we have submitted email. This is basically storing the email that's submitted when we input it in the front end. This is basically email regex. This basically sets the format that your email should be in, and this here, this if statement is checking if your email that you input in the front end is basically matching the email regex format, which is this. So that's basically saying that if the email is valid, then what happens is using res.send, this HTML update is basically sent, right, and to the front end. Now this HTML basically has the submitted email over here, which is what the user submits, and states that the email is valid. Reason why it states that the email is valid is because the email is basically matching, the submitted email is basically matching the email regex, which is this format. And you see that in the front end that the email is valid, right? That's because the if statement is true. But if it's not valid, basically what happens is this HTML is passed to the front end, and it has this message, or it has this email that you inputted, and then the message that you should enter a valid email address. So as soon as that happens, that email is not valid, so then it says that I should enter a valid email address. So that's basically the post request being handled in the back end. Then jumping into my index.html, basically have the header validate your email inline, and then within this div class element here, I have hx target this. This is basically saying that we are targeting this element, this whole div class, right? Reason we're targeting it is because we want to replace all this information with the newly updated information which includes basically the email and stating that the email is valid or it's not valid. So how that's done is with this HX swap outer HTML, which swaps the data and brings in basically this or that in the front end. Then we have HX post, which is basically making the post request to email basically after we put in our email, right? Then it makes a post request to the endpoint email. And usually the post request is made when we put the email in the placeholder, which is over here. And that is basically chapter 5, creating the email validation application. Then jumping into chapter 6. Let's stop the server. Then get this running. Cool. We have chapter 6. So for chapter 6, we basically have this user profile over here in the front end, and it has a card here displaying the name and a bio, right? And basically here how this works is when we click edit, well, the goal is to edit the name and the bio, right, to update it. So when you click edit, a get request is being sent, right? And then basically as soon as we edit this form, right? So when we edit this form and we display a new bio, right? Then the new bio is basically updated. The new user profile is basically updated with a new name and a new bio over here, right? But as soon as we update that and we click save changes, right, what happens is a put request, right, is being sent to the specific endpoint basically. So that's basically how it works. It works with a get request and a put request. So let's see that in our code. So over here we have our server.js, right? Let's jump into the method that handles the get request for the profile edit, right? So the get request, when we click edit, is basically being sent to this endpoint user/id/edit, and then there's a callback function, and when that get request is sent, what happens is we basically receive basically a new form in order to edit the existing data in that form or the existing values in that form. So that is sent because of this HTML over here, which basically has the existing data, which is the name and the bio, and we can actually change that name and bio because it sends us that form. So when we have that displayed, basically when we click edit the get request and then we have this displayed over here, right, what happens is there's a put request that is being handled, right, as soon as or before we, or let me say as soon as we make the updated changes. So this put request, right, is being sent to the user/id, and then there's a callback function. Then this is representing the name and the bio that we want to update, right? Then res.send, basically what that does is it sends newly updated information. So because we updated the form, the put request, sorry, is being made, and then this is the new card that is displayed in the front end with our name and our new bio, basically. So that's basically the back end of it. Then we have index.html. This is for the front end. So I have my header h1 user profile, and then within this div class element, there's this hx target this. What we're targeting is basically the this card body over here, to replace it with newly updated information, right, when we basically make the post request. And how that's done is with hx swap, which swaps the data. So over here we have that name and basically the bio, right? And because we have that there in our front end, so we have that there in our front end, we can basically click to edit over here, and when we click to edit, it shows the form, and we're able to update that form. And as soon as we update the form, right, as soon as we update the form, then basically a post request is made, essentially. Not a post, put request. Keep saying post. Put request is made when we update the form. Then this is for the get request. So basically when we click edit, then the get request is being sent to this endpoint so that we can have that new form, or let me say we can have that form with pre-existing data to edit or update. And yeah, that's basically the put request and the get request being used. Also the hx target and hx swap in order to update the form in our front end. That's chapter 6 basically. And yeah, thanks for watching.